Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ramadan Mubarak to all, and welcome to our Health Literacy webinar. My name is Ghani Youssef, the Operations Chair of NICC Health Literacy Series, and I will be moderating our important topic today. Over the next hour, our two speakers will be sharing their expertise on nutrition in Ramadan. We will dedicate the last 20 minutes of the session to a Q&A, so please share your questions in the Q&A box. Ramadan, the month of fasting for Muslims, comes once a lunar year and brings so many opportunities and challenges to those who observe it. It is also unique this year. It has, without a doubt, forced us to think of our health as a continuum and brought the power of the unseen to our sight. We are excited to host a very much needed topic about the impact of fasting on our bodies for both kids and adults. Today we have Sisters Salma Sbai and Batul Sawaf as our guest speakers. We are so thankful they are sharing their time and expertise with us. Salma Sbai graduated from The Ohio State University in 2015 with a Bachelor's of Science in Nutrition. She went on to complete her dietetic internship at the same university in 2020 and became a registered and licensed dietitian. She currently serves as a board member of the Colombic Dietetic Association. Salma has been a member of the NICC community for 10 years and has volunteered in various capacities. Most recently, she completed a 4-year term on the executive committee and currently co-directs the Noor Kids Club program. Her passion is helping women with polycystic ovary syndrome manage their symptoms and live happier and healthier lives. Batul Sawaf got her first bachelor's degree in chemistry from Damascus University and her second bachelor's degree in food and nutrition from the University of Alabama. She went on to complete her internship in Flint, Michigan in 2020. She currently works at Nationwide Children's Hospital as a clinical dietitian part-time and teaches Quran in Noor Kids Club on Saturdays. In their practice, Sister Batul works mainly with women that are looking for help to navigating optimized nutrition throughout the phase of planning a pregnancy, during pregnancy, and postpartum and breastfeeding. Without further ado, the mic is yours.
Jazakallah khairan Lamia for that. Assalamu alaikum everyone, and thank you guys so much for joining our talk. We're super excited about this topic today, talking about managing a healthy weight in Ramadan and achieving balance during Ramadan. So if you're like so many other people and you're struggling to maintain your weight during Ramadan, know that you're not alone. This is a very, very common complaint that we tend to hear from people. And it really confuses people because it seems counterintuitive that we're fasting for like 14, 16 hours a day. And yet still by the end of Ramadan, we've actually gained some weight. And so that's why we chose this topic today. We're hoping to give you guys some insight so you can learn what are the pitfalls that we tend to fall into, how we can avoid them, and most importantly, how we can establish healthy eating behaviors during Ramadan and beyond, inshallah. A quick background on us, Batul and I are owners of Grapevine Nutrition for Women's Health. Like Ghania mentioned, we work with women who are dealing with polycystic ovary syndrome, women trying to get pregnant, who are pregnant, and women who are postpartum. If you want to reach out, please feel free to. You can see our social media handles up on the screen. We welcome any questions or concerns. A quick overview. So we're going to begin today's talk talking about shifting our mindset, because we believe before we can even begin to think of changing habits, we need to first change the way that we think about food and our approach to it. Then we'll talk about building a positive relationship with food, healthy eating habits that we can establish during this month, and some pro tips that you guys can hopefully take benefit from.
So like Salma mentioned, the first thing in the healthy eating habits that we can establish is shifting our mindset. And the first thing that we're gonna focus on today is our Muslim mindset. So let's start with the basics. Let's return what's the principle of Ramadan and fasting. So fasting is supposed to be a mean for us to curb our desires, discipline ourselves. But sadly, however, a lot of us tend to see that we can spend a lot of time in the day focusing and fantasizing about food and watching YouTube videos. And you see the whole YouTube videos, all Muslims going through the comments, all of us Muslims, and preparing and looking for recipes for huge iftars in that day. We end up approaching iftar afterwards with the intention of curbing or unsatisfying every craving or desire we had at that day. What we want to do, and we want to try this Ramadan, inshallah, to approach iftar with the attention to nourish our bodies, to perform our ibadah and worship the way we should. Now, that doesn't mean that we cannot indulge in some food that we like, because every food has a place in a healthy diet in moderation. But we want to avoid this time to the all or nothing mentality that a lot of us deal with on day-to-day basic when we restrict our diet a lot during the day or during months, and then we go through phases of binging or overindulging in everything that we restricted before. We want to remember that food is not the enemy, is a blessing that we Muslim look at it, but we just need the right approach. So it's like the ayah said, وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا. So eat and drink, but don't be excessive.
Absolutely. And so, like Batu said, food is not the enemy. It's all about building a positive relationship with food. And so, honestly, the first step we take before building healthy eating habits is making sure we have the right foundation and the right relationship with food. And so you might be thinking, well, what does a positive relationship with food even look like? That's when you feel comfortable responding to your body's hunger. That's when you are comfortable indulging in the foods that you enjoy and like without following that with feelings of shame or guilt. And so obviously the opposite is also true. If you tend to ignore your body's signs of hunger, if you're someone who tends to skip meals in hopes of managing your weight or losing weight, if you're someone who every time you indulge in something that you like, you feel shame and guilt afterwards, these are signs of having a toxic relationship with food. And so many studies have shown us time and time again that when we follow very restrictive diets in an attempt to lose weight or manage weight, it pushes us through that cycle of overindulging later on and binge eating, and then going back to that restrictive diet. And with time, over the years, we really end up actually gaining a lot of weight and pushing us beyond a healthy weight. So that's definitely something we want to avoid. A great example of this is a client I recently had. She came to me because she was having some issues managing her weight. Over the years, her weight was steadily going up, and she had tried everything she could to keep it where it was at. And so with time, she kept eating less and less and less. So by the time she came to me, she was having one very small meal a day, and still her weight was going up. And so she came to me wanting to help with dealing with that. And the first thing that we did, we spent probably something like 3 months simply working on her relationship with food, which looked like us adding in more and more. First, we began with snacks, having multiple snacks throughout the day, and then building into meals to where she got to a place where she was comfortable and happy, eating 3 meals and at least 2 snacks throughout the day. And by the end of the 3 months, she came to me and she was, shocked and surprised, pleasantly surprised, to say, like, I can't believe I'm eating now so much more, like more than 3 times what she had been eating previously, and that I'm able to keep my weight where it is. Her weight stopped going up. And on top of that, she just felt so much better. She had energy. She was able to partake in the things that she wanted to. And because she had energy, she was able to have a more active lifestyle, go to the gym when she wanted to, meet up with friends. So her quality of life improved. And it all began with fixing her relationship with food. So if we want to be like this client and we want to shift our mindset, like Batu said, where we don't see food as the enemy, we see food as a nourishment and as a blessing. And we need to start by understanding that cutting calories is not the key to a healthy weight. That's very important. Cutting calories is not going to be the key to a healthy weight. And so it follows that fasting is also not a method for weight loss. And I say this now because I really believe all of us should go into Ramadan with the intention of being healthy, yes, but we don't enter Ramadan with the intention of, okay, this is a great opportunity for me to come in to Ramadan and lose a bunch of weight because I'm fasting most of the day and I'm going to skip suhoor and have a very small iftar. That's not the right intention to be coming into Ramadan with, and it doesn't serve us in the long term either. So what is the key then to managing a healthy weight? It's going to be having healthy eating habits, establishing healthy eating habits, and adopting lifestyle behavior changes, which is what we're going to be talking about today, inshallah.
So how do we establish those healthy eating behaviors that Salma was talking about? The first and foremost step that we need to start practicing is intuitive eating. Intuitive eating is really the cornerstone of healthy eating habits. So what is intuitive eating? Intuitive eating is all about using your body intuition as a guide to not overeat without having to cut calories or measure food, or which is really sustainable and more practical long-term, which tends also to result in building lifelong positive behaviors. So it's really important when discussing intuitive eating to understand first and foremost what is motivating us to eat. Either is it like because we're bored, because we're anxious at that time, we're angry? Is it out of habit because I'm just eating without thinking about it? What we usually, so Ramadan is a great opportunity to help with that because we're fasting the whole day and we really see how do we cope usually with those stressors. So if we usually, now you have the opportunity to cope and find coping mechanisms for these stressors, for these feelings, and find other coping mechanisms. Is it prayer? Is it Quran recitation? Is it dua? Is it exercise, biking, breathing exercises, journaling, anything, etc., etc. So if you used before eating as a emotional crutch, now is the time to change that and hopefully carry those coping mechanisms to beyond Ramadan. So another great tool to use with intuitive eating is the hunger scale. The hunger scale is what you see on the screen here. Is a simple concept, but it's a great visual that we can use to help us recognize the stages of hunger that we are going through throughout the day and how our bodies react to it. So like you see, stage 1 is starving. So starving is when you're feeling weak, fatigued, shaky, really tired. And the opposite side of that is number 10, stage 10, when you feel overfull, you feel really uncomfortable, you're needing to lie down, to take a nap. And so what we really want to focus on is try to be in the middle of those stages. So between 3 and 7, hungry, not too hungry, and then comfortably satisfied, not too full. How do we achieve that? So we try to use that by eating slowly, enjoy our food, savoring every bite, don't really rush through meals, enjoy family meals where you talk to each other. Also use some breathing exercises in between bites if necessary. So for example, if you struggle with rushing through iftar, usually be mindful next iftar on how long it takes you to get through it. So if you time yourself and you find yourself getting through iftar in 5-10 minutes, maybe try to eat slower and increase the increments by like 5 minutes until you reach 15-20 minutes. What does that do? It's help our bodies recognize our fullness cues better and maybe stop eating when we feeling satisfied and not overeat.
Absolutely. So another very important tool in building healthy eating behaviors this Ramadan is going to be portion control. And this is, I feel like, a big one during Ramadan for many Muslims. There was a study conducted some years ago in the Gulf countries, And what they found was that close to about 60% of Muslims were gaining a significant amount of weight during Ramadan. And they found that this was one of several reasons behind that. It was the portions that we were eating. And I think the reason behind this is twofold. One, like Sister Batul mentioned earlier, a lot of us approach iftar with the intention of satisfying a craving instead of just nourishing our bodies. And so what we tend to indulge in not just a moderate amount, but a lot of foods that are very high in calorie with very little nutritional benefit, and foods that don't keep us feeling full for a long time. So we get hungry very quickly. The other reason I believe is because we tend to assume that, because iftar time is so short, no matter how much I eat, no matter what I drink, there's no way I'm going to be able to hit the same calorie numbers that I usually get on non-fasting days. And that assumption is just not true. Obviously, we can and we do often hit that calorie limit and exceed it during Ramadan. So portion control is going to be very important for us. I like to use the My Plate method, which is this image that you guys see in front of you, because it's a great visual. It's very easy to understand, and more importantly, it's very easy to remember. So when we approach iftar after we've had our dates and our water, we want to focus first and foremost on the foods that are giving us lots of fiber. So that's going to be our vegetables and fruit. And you want at least half a plate of vegetables. And the reason for that is that fiber is going to help us feel full quicker. It also helps us balance our blood sugar after a meal, so we're not feeling very tired after iftar time. And we just get so many nutrients from vegetables. They're easy to digest. They're very good for our gut health. So particularly if you have issues with constipation during Ramadan, you're going to want to make sure to get lots of vegetables and varied colors. And there's so many ways to get, obviously, your vegetables, whether it's salad and soups or roasted veggies. There's so many different ways to try and get that in there. After vegetables, we have our protein. And protein, again, is going to make us feel very satiated. And we want at least about a fourth of our plate to be protein. Protein obviously comes from animal sources like meats and chicken and fish, but you can also get a lot of plant-based protein, like black beans or lentils or hummus. Those are excellent sources of protein if you don't want to be eating meat all the time. And protein is what's going to help us not only feel full during iftar for a longer time, but it's also going to help us preserve our muscle mass, particularly if you're someone who tends to lose weight during Ramadan. And that does happen to some of us. If you tend to lose weight during Ramadan, you want to avoid losing muscle mass, and having enough protein is going to help ensure that. So getting enough protein is important. And lastly, we have our grains. And I think this is where many of us, a lot of our issues arise, because in many of our different ethnic cuisines, we tend to focus a lot on grains. And there's so many foods that go in this food group, whether it's rice or bulgur or bread, or sambusa or samosas, all these different foods that we have at our iftar, they all fit into this group called grains. And so what I would suggest to people is, if you tend to have, for example, rice and bread at the same meal, maybe try to include just one of those, have just rice, or maybe do just bread, or do half the portions, have less rice and also include the bread, but a smaller portion, because we do want to control the amount of grains that we have at iftar time. And just a reminder, like for iftar, if you're someone who tends to get full very quickly, we do not have to rush iftar or eat everything at one time. We can break it up. We can do smaller meals or have snacks throughout iftar hours if you can't get all of your nutrients in at one time.
So how do we use those tips that we talked about before? Especially because Ramadan is obviously a very social event for many of us Muslims, and a lot of us enjoy dinner parties and iftars and gatherings, and a lot of us, and we hear a lot about it, that a lot of you struggle with being mindful of how you are eating during iftars, which tend to leave us at the end of the day with an open button or two of our pants, with struggling to go to iftar and dragging our feet, struggling to go to Taraweeh and dragging our feet to pray. But so how do we avoid this common problem that we all have? the best way to do that is to have a plan. What the plan look like is, first and foremost, when you break your fast, if you're breaking the fast with the tamar or dates, start with 1 to 3 to have the ajr that for the sunnah, but don't overeat on the dates, because while dates have a lot of good nutrients and benefits and really good for you, they're very high in calories. Like, for example, 2 majul dates have 120 calories. So we don't want to like pile up the calories and we're still like in the pre-slaughter thing. So calm down on the dates. Then when you go to the table, start with veggies at first. Try to fill your plate with any type of veggies or salads or soups, and then reassess how you feel afterwards. Because if you feel, like Salma said, if you feel like full fast, you don't have to eat everything at once. You can maybe go back to the table afterwards. Maybe if you want, get that plate that you want to take afterwards and get it with you to eat at home or after Taraweeh or something like that. So you don't have to eat it all at once. Then if you want to go for that next plate, go look over that table, pick your top 2 choices that you really want to try and start with those. And remember, like Salma said about the my plate method, and try to visualize how your plate should look like. But if you felt really full afterwards, don't take too many portions. Try to have small portions on that meal, because we really want to avoid overfilling our plate, and then you either have to waste it and feel bad, or overeat to finish that plate and feeling full and bad again. So we really want to make sure we don't over a plate. Little by little small portions is the key. And always leave room for dessert, because as we say in Arabic, في الجوف في خلوة لا يملأها إلا الحلوى. So there's some space in the stomach that really doesn't fill it something else like a dessert. So leave the room for that if you want. And last but not least, when you go to fill up your drinks, try to avoid any high calorie or sugary drinks, because it's really easy to take too many calories through drinking those drinks, and they really don't have any nutritional value that they can add to us that much. And if you really want to do like fresh juice or our natural juice, if you don't prefer the whole fruit, which is still better, try to have smaller portions with a lot of ice to cut down the calories. So, and still have your juice. So
yeah, absolutely. Still enjoy your juice.
Yeah.
Just watch
in
out
moderation.
for those portions. Yeah. All right. So our pro tips. We're going to go through a couple of tips for you guys that you can focus on during Ramadan. Our suggestion to you, if you want to grab a paper and pencil and just pick maybe 2, maximum like 3 things that you want to set as goals for yourself, so you avoid feeling overwhelmed during this month. But setting a specific goal that's very relevant to you is going to help you just make sure you stick to that plan, and that you see the results that you want to through this month, inshallah. All right, so the first thing is physical activity. And when we talk about physical activity right now, we're not necessarily talking about like actual exercising or going to the gym or going out for a jog or something like that. When we talk about physical activity, we're talking about your day-to-day activities, the errands that you run throughout the day, going grocery shopping, cleaning around the house, taking care of the kids or family, going to work. All those things, they really do add up and they use up a lot of energy. We tend to underestimate how much, but it does add up. And so our suggestion to you is to keep up your daily activity that you have right now. There have been studies that have looked at people who are doing intermittent fasting, which is very similar to the fasting that we do in terms of length of time. And they found that people who are intermittent fasting tended to be more sedentary, to sit around the house more, to avoid doing the activities that they usually do when they're not fasting. And so even though they were taking in less food and less calories, they were also expending less and using less in their day-to-day. And this is also one of the causes that came out in the study I mentioned earlier with Muslims, is that many Muslims tend to, in Ramadan, become very sedentary. We see this especially, I think, overseas, where people kind of flip their schedule around. They sleep in during the day and they'll stay up more during the night. And this is part of the reason that we tend to see a lot of weight gain during Ramadan. So try to keep your physical activity and your schedule as it is. If you're someone who does exercise regularly outside of Ramadan and you want to try to keep that up to some degree during Ramadan, the best times for that is obviously going to be during iftar hours or early suhoor. It can be very difficult for people to find the time because we have tarawih prayers and other prayers during the night. So if you can't do that, then right before iftar is going to be your second best time. And I would suggest to focus on strength training. And strength training is anything from lifting weights to doing like specific workouts, like ab workouts or push-ups or things like that. And the reason for that is it expends less energy during the workout itself, but it has long-lasting benefits, and it helps us retain our muscle mass throughout the month. It's also not going to cause you to sweat as much as aerobic exercise does, so you're less likely to get dehydrated. And lastly, like we said, set a specific goal for yourself. So maybe for, something that's actually practical for you. So maybe for you, walking 3 times a day for 15 minutes is something that you want to aim for, but setting something that's very specific in terms of how often and how long and the type of activity is going to be very important to keeping yourself to that goal.
Another pro tip that we really need to focus on is the pre-fast meal or suhoor meal. Like as Selma mentioned, we tend to keep our activity down during Ramadan because we feel sometimes because we don't have energy, and a lot of it sometimes is related to because we tend to skip suhoor. A lot of us tend to skip suhoor. So not just suhoor, not just important because it's a sunnah, but also it's important for keeping our energy and keeping our metabolism up too. So if you tend to skip suhoor during Ramadan, try this time to set realistic goals, like add a bit of suhoor for your diet, for your meals, like keep something small, a snack or a wholesome smaller meal that you can eat next to your bed table. Have a glass of water, just have those. It's better than nothing, and it's really help you little by little build up your stomach and your energy and going back to maybe for a big suhoor, for not big but like a healthy suhoor. So what are some of the components of a healthy suhoor? It's the same thing as iftar, is high fiber, because it's keep our bowel movement regular, keep us feeling full, help with our gut health. It's like you get those high fibers in vegetables, fruits, and whole grains like oatmeal, toast, pita bread, and anything that has whole grains in it. Also, another really important part of a healthy suhoor is high protein. High protein, we need to focus on that because it helps us keep our muscle, not lose our muscle in there, and help us feel full longer, help with satiety factor, and better control of our blood sugar. And maybe add some healthy fats in there, like olive oil or avocados or canola oil, to help us with that saturating factor as well, to make us feeling full longer in the day and feeling more energetic, and also help with the better controls for our blood sugar. All of this helps us get lower glycemic index and not crash during the day. And if you need any tips or ideas for fast, easy suhoor meals, please fill out the Google form in the comments and to get yours that we were providing today.
Yeah, we're providing a free guide to suhoor ebook with lots of quick suhoor ideas that are going to be high fiber and protein. So inshallah, you guys find benefit in that. Just make sure to fill out the Google form and put your email so we can send it to you, inshallah. All right. Our next tip is going to be hydration, and this is something that I think a lot of people struggle with. I think all of us know at least one person who tends to like drink a gallon of water in the last 5 minutes of suhoor time, thinking that that's going to help them stay hydrated, but all it does is make you rush to the bathroom. So to stay hydrated, we want to first and foremost avoid sugary drinks and salty snacks. That's just gonna make us dehydrated throughout the day. So try to avoid those during iftar suhoor time. Try to include a lot of fruits and vegetables that are high in water content. We need to get our water not just through actually drinking water, but through the foods that we have. And so things like watermelon, cantaloupe, peaches, oranges are very high in water. Vegetables like tomatoes or cucumbers or peppers. Try to include those during suhoor time, even as a snack after iftar if you're feeling hungry before bed. And that's something very quick and easy you can have at any time, and it'll help you stay hydrated throughout the day. And then, of course, when it comes to actually drinking water, try to have a plan. Again, try to set a goal for yourself. So if you know that you don't drink as much water as you should, maybe get like a large water bottle, let everybody in your family know that this is just for you, and aim to drink at least 1 full or 2 full water bottles throughout the iftar hours. Keep it with you so you can sip on it throughout the time. During Tarawih, keep it by your bedside. So if you wake up at night, you can also take a sip of water, and try not to be one of those people who's, trying to put it all down in the last 5 minutes.
And last but not least, sleep. So why sleep is important? When we don't sleep enough, usually it can mess up with our hormones and increase our cortisol levels, which results in increased stress, weight gain, heart problems, and like lead to more overall poor quality sleep as well, because the higher cortisol, the harder you fall asleep too. So it's a really bad cycle. Yeah. So try to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep overall every day. If you find it hard, like a lot of us too, if you find it hard to get those hours because it's Ramadan and there's no time to sleep as much, maybe try to manage 1 or 2 short naps, meaning 20 to 30 minutes. 20 to 30 minutes means because you don't want to fall into deep sleep and feel groggy and tired afterwards. Just shorter naps is better always, and helps you power throughout the day. Also, like Selma mentioned, always set a goal for yourself. If you find it hard to sleep when you go back from Salah or Tarawih, try to limit your electronics, limit your screens, and turn off the lights, and set up your body for better sleep. So you can try to get as much as sleep during the night, and then add some naps during the day to help you get through. Yeah.
Sleep is very important for weight management. I don't think people realize that.
Yeah.
So that is the end of that. If you guys have any questions, do let us know. We're more than happy to take them. Also, if you guys want to reach out, all of our information is up on the screen. We'd love to hear from you guys.
Thank you both so much for the enlightening content. And then before we move on to the Q&A session, here's an opportunity for everyone to sign up to receive the free PDF mentioned by our speakers. I put the Google form link in the chat, so I'll give everyone like a quick minute to quickly fill out their information so that they can receive the PDF. And then we'll start the Q&A. Okay, we'll start the Q&A. So the first question, I believe you already answered this, but just as a quick reminder, when do you recommend exercising, before or after iftar?
Yeah, So exercising always during like eating hours. So after iftar happens is always going to be better. Or early in the morning, if you can wake up super early, have a small snack, do your workout, and then have your larger food meal. That's always ideal. That's very difficult for a lot of people to manage time-wise during Ramadan because already the time to sleep is so short. So your next best bet is going to be before iftar. It's going to be before iftar time.
Yeah, because you're gonna eat afterwards, so you're gonna replenish those proteins and water. Yeah.
And the next question is, what are the best foods to consume to have maximum energy levels in either situation?
In which situation?
The exercising after iftar and then right before.
Yeah. Do you want
to? Really focus on high protein because you want to replenish those proteins and help build those muscles and not lose any of that, and some carbs because we need to replenish our energy. Make sure those carbs are high in fibers to help us with energy maintenance during the day, and a lot of water because you're going to lose some electrolytes in there. So make sure you're drinking a lot of water and with those meals because it helps you replenish your food storage and your water storage.
And like with the exercising, if you're able to do it during iftar time so you can have something to eat before we exercise, we usually want something that's a little bit simpler and easier to digest, like simple carbs, because it gives us quick energy. And afterwards is where we focus on like our protein and fiber. But if we're talking about throughout the day, trying to maintain our energy level while fasting throughout the day, the reason we're stressing protein and fiber is, again, like Batul said, like we don't want our blood sugar to spike and then crash really quickly. So adding protein and fiber to a meal makes it so that your blood sugar is going up very gradually throughout the day, and it kind of stays balanced and then gradually starts to fall off. So you avoid like a big crash. And when we crash, that's when we usually feel really tired.
Thank you. And the next question is, any tips on avoiding bloating after eating iftar?
Like we said, don't overeat. First and foremost, try to eat gradually. Fill your plate with the smaller portions. Don't because we're so hungry at iftar time, we tend to overestimate how much we really need to fill our stomachs and feel satisfied after the long days. And because we're so hungry, we filled our plate fast and like we filled to the brim and we eat fast, then we don't really recognize our hunger cues, and afterwards like it hits us. I overeat and I drink so much water with a lot of meals and I get bloated that much. So try to gradually add the time meal.
I'd also say there are certain types of like vegetables that can lead to more bloating, and certain types of grains. So if that person likes, we can reach out to them. They can reach out to us via email. We can let them know what types of food maybe to avoid. And also there are certain spices that we can add to our food, like curcumin, that help with bloating as well, help relieve that feeling.
And if you before Ramadan, you don't eat a lot of whole grains or a lot of fiber, don't add it all at once, because that's when your body really get bloated too much. So we really need to add the fiber gradually, not all at once.
That's a really good point. Be gradual with your
fiber. Because sometimes we go in a healthy eating spree and flip everything, and we eat so many vegetables at once, and we feel bad afterwards.
If your body's not used to it, it takes adjustment. So again, if you don't eat any fruits and vegetables usually, maybe add one a day, or like just have one, aim to have one the first week, and then try to get up to 3 servings, something like that. Make it gradual.
Thank you. And then another participant said, thank you for this well-timed webinar. How do you recommend making small changes into traditional Arab/South Asian dishes? My family and friends love traditional food, and it can be difficult giving it a healthy twist, especially in Ramadan gatherings.
Can I go? Okay. I actually think our food, like ethnic foods, lend themselves very well to a healthy diet, because first of all, we tend to eat a lot of home cooked meals, and that's very rare in this day and age. So that's already a huge improvement. And we do include a lot of vegetables, and we do stews that are varied with vegetables and meat. I think just like we talked about the My Plate method, so focusing on portions and making sure that you're not overdoing it with one type of food group over the other. So if you have like a stew and rice, you want that portion of stew to be much larger because it's got the vegetables and it's got the protein in there, and your rice portion should be a bit smaller. We tend to do it the other way around. We tend to have like a small amount of vegetables and protein and a lot of rice next to it. So really it's just about the portioning out.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And then another question is, can you talk about eating disorders and fasting?
That's a really good question. And I don't know if we'll have enough time to like fully delve into that. And it might vary depending on like, I think what's
individuals. Yeah. I
individual.
think this topic is really specific for the individual. So it differs. There are a lot of eating disorders and different concerns, and it's where you're at in your recovering journey. So it differs from person to person. Yeah.
And it's like the client story I mentioned early on, that is a form of disordered eating where you're afraid of gaining weight, or you're afraid if you change something in your diet, you're going to have like these terrible consequences. So again, about that mindset, like food is nourishment. We need it to live a healthy, high quality life.
Yeah, it goes hand in hand.
And it takes really small steps. So you can't change things all at once. But if that person wants to reach out, we can help them specifically with whatever issues or obstacles they have.
Thank you. And then
I will mention, just as a comment, that we do like free initial like 15-minute sessions. So if anyone's not sure on if they have a certain issue and they're not sure if we can help them out or not, that's something we can definitely figure out together. Just reach out to us and we'll let you know, inshallah.
And then the next question is, what foods to prioritize for diabetic patients who choose to fast?
Okay. Yeah. So with diabetic patients, I would first and foremost urge you to talk to your doctor about that decision. Make sure you're making an informed decision, because it's definitely not easy to do so when you're diabetic. Even if you can get through the day or through several days or throughout the month, messing with your blood sugar, having it go very high, very low, not keeping it balanced for a long period of time has long-term consequences. So even if you're able to fast, like you say to yourself, okay, I made it through this day, or I'm going to try to fast at least 2-3 days a week, you might be able to do it now, but we don't know what the long-term consequences of that looks like. But if you are trying to fast and you have talked to your doctor, then again, a lot of the same things that we talked about, because you want to balance your blood sugar. So adding that fiber in there and that protein in there, especially the fiber, focusing on whole grains, and not going towards like the sugary drinks or the simple carbs that we digest really quickly and that kind of cause our blood sugar to spike and then crash later on.
And just to note, this is relating to type 2 diabetic. Type 1 should not fast, and really we really need to avoid the fasting, because the problem with type 1 or like some type 2 diabetes that are dependent on insulin is that, because especially making sure you don't take a nap before iftar. That time, usually a lot of patients that try to fast and they didn't like ask their doctor or anything, it's a very high risk for getting into diabetic coma, or it's very, very hard. So make sure it's very, very close monitored with your doctor, your family, and ask the right questions. And then if it was okay by the doctor, your family are around you, you're not alone in the house, then you can try to fast. Or if you're type 2 and you're still on like the metformin or anything like that, that's like that manageable by only medication, not insulin.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Thank you so much. And then the last question I have is a question from me. There's a lot of information about being in a caloric deficit, and that's like the only way that you can lose weight. What are your like thoughts on it, and is it beneficial to even attempt it, or should we worry more about being in maintenance calories if we're also working out?
This is, you're saying for someone who wants to lose weight?
Yes.
Okay. So the thing with calories is to lose weight, you do need to be in a calorie deficit. But there are, so when we talk about calories, we usually use like a scale analogy where you have calories coming in, that's the energy coming in, and what you're expending or using throughout the day. So if what you're using is equal to what you're bringing in, then you maintain your weight. This is really simplifying it. And if what you're using is more than what you're bringing in, then you're going to lose weight. And the opposite, if you're eating more or bringing in more calories than you're actually using, you're going to gain weight. That's the simplified version. What we tend to see though is that looking at this cycle, especially with women, a lot of women, when they want to lose weight, they want to do it really fast. And so what they're used to doing is they cut their calories, they start eating less. And they do lose weight. They eat less, and because they keep up their activity, they lose weight. But what they don't realize is if I don't do it in a smart way, if I don't do it gradually, my metabolism starts to go down. So my body's going to start using less energy. And also I can't maintain this low calorie like diet.
Yeah.
If I'm going for a very restrictive diet, I can't maintain it. So I'll do this for a couple of weeks maybe, and then I'll go back up. But what happens when I go back up is my metabolism did not come back up with me. So it begins the cycle where you gain that weight back plus some very quickly, and then you do the same thing again. You want to lose weight really fast, maybe because it's wedding season or whatever the reason is, and so you cut your calories drastically, and then your metabolism goes down, but you lose the weight, so you're getting like that positive reinforcement. But then you can't maintain it, and then you start eating the way you were before. And so it's this vicious cycle. So long-term, and that's why I use the word long-term weight loss or long-term weight management, because we're not talking about just from here, 1 year, 5 years. We're talking about 10, 20, 30 years down the line. Our goal is to try to live healthy lives where, you know, even when we reach the age of 60, 80, we can still be involved with our families. We still have the energy and the ability to just be a part of our family's lives and have a high quality life. Mm-hmm. So in order to do that, this cycle of dieting or cutting my calories to lose weight every so often, it leads to us gaining a lot of weight in the long term because we don't learn any healthy eating habits. Mm-hmm. So what we want to do is we actually want to play on this side of the balance. I want to increase my metabolism. I want to build more muscle so that my body is naturally using more energy, and so that I feel healthier and I have healthier bones. And I don't want to cut my calories, but I want to watch what I'm eating. I want to eat healthy, and I want to indulge in the things that I like, but in a healthy manner. So that's all about, like we said, lifestyle behavior changes. It's about taking it slow, very gradual, one step at a time, so that when you make a change, you sustain that change. You keep it long term. This is not something we're going to backtrack and revert back to our old habits. And that's why it's really beneficial to work with a dietitian, because they can help you on the specifics, like set specific goals for yourself that you can manage long term.
Thank you so much. And that will conclude the Q&A session. We once again thank our speakers and you all for tuning in. This webinar will be available on our NeuroHigh YouTube channel. Please feel free to share with those who might find it beneficial. And as always, remember to share some of your charity with our beloved Noor Center during this holy month. If we are interested in receiving feedback on our health literacy events, please complete the post-webinar survey and tell us how we can best accommodate your health and education needs. For any questions or suggestions, you can email education@neurohio.org. And Grapevine Nutrition is a very cool and much needed information for all of us Muslim people, especially during the month of Ramadan. So please give them a follow on their Facebook, Instagram, check out their website, and email them with any questions that you might have. And assalamu alaikum, and hope you guys have a blessed Ramadan, inshallah. Thank you again.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you guys for having us.